Welcome to the Workology Podcast, a podcast for the disruptive workplace leader. Join host Jessica Miller-Merrell, founder of Workology.com, as she sits down and gets to the bottom of trends, tools, and case studies for the business leader, HR, and recruiting professional who is tired of the status quo. Now here's Jessica with this episode of Workology.
Welcome to the Workology Podcast, sponsored by our online learning platform where we train new managers, people leaders, as well as certification prep and recertification for HR. You can take a look at our latest course called Practical Performance Management. Head on over to see all our courses, including Practical Performance Management at workology.com/shop. Today, we're digging into a challenge that is keeping HR leaders and managers up at night, and that is retaining your high performers. These are employees who move the needle, drive innovation, and are next in line for leadership positions. But in a competitive job market, even the one we are in now, keeping them engaged and committed is no easy feat. We'll explore what motivates high potentials, how to create growth and paths that stick, and the strategies that help you keep holding on to your top talent before they're lured away. And that's why I'm so excited to invite our guest to join us here on the podcast today. But before I introduce our guest, I do want to hear from you. Please comment podcast on our pinned post over on our Instagram account. It's at Workology Blog. Ask questions, leave comments, and make suggestions for future guests. I want to hear from you. So today's guest is my good friend, Trasetta Washington. She's known as the team technician, a nationally recognized speaker, leadership wellness coach, and productivity strategist who helps mission-driven leaders realign their teams without burning themselves out. With over 25 years of experience in business operations and team development, she brings a signature blend of strategy, structure, and soul to her work, making her a trusted partner for purpose-driven organizations. As the CEO of Profitable Productivity LLC, Trasetta equips nonprofit and human service leaders with practical tools to eliminate team friction, improve collaboration, and build a culture rooted in trust, accountability, and well-being. Through realignment-based programs like the Teamwork Tune-Up Intensive and the Leadership Accelerator, she empowers leaders to stop managing everything and start leading teams that perform without running on empty. Whether she's coaching executive leaders through breakdowns or facilitating energizing workshops across the country, Trasetta's no-fluff, heart-centered approach helps teams pause, reflect, and realign so they can thrive together. Trasetta, welcome to the Workology Podcast.
It's a pleasure to be here, Jessica. It's so good to I get the opportunity to actually see you.
I know we've known each other for quite a while, but we work in virtual circles unless we happen to be in the same room somewhere. But that's been a minute.
Yeah, it has. Yeah, I think it's been probably 3 years.
Yeah,
in Dallas. Yeah, so.
But I think we'll see each other maybe in December. Is what I
saw.
Yes.
Amazing. I'm looking forward to that.
So let's start the conversation around high performers. What is the biggest mistake that you see mission-driven leaders making when it comes to not just managing the high performers, but teams overall?
The biggest thing is they take on too much themselves, right? And they don't invest in developing their people. They have that mindset of it's just easy, it's faster if I do it myself. And what ends up happening is you as the leader have too much on your plate. So now you're having to work harder, and you're not creating space for your team to be able to increase their own capacity, to be able to grow and develop professionally. Yes, it takes a little bit more time in the beginning to delegate or offload tasks to your team, but in the long run, it's going to save you time. So it's going to increase the capacity of your team member, right? Because now they're learning new skills. They're able to do things that are hopefully in alignment with what their own career goals are. And now you're freed up to focus on the things that only you can do as the leader. And so that's the number one thing. I think the second thing is that they confuse busyness with impact, right? And so just because I'm doing all these things, I'm doing all these tasks, I'm being impactful. But we need to really, as leaders, we really need to evaluate the work that we're doing. What are the things that we're doing that are actually driving the impact to the bottom line, to the people that we serve, to whatever your KPIs are? What are the things that I do that drive impact there versus just the busy work of getting stuck in your email for 2 to 3 hours out of the day? Because all that really is busy work.
It's busy work, and it is a path to burnout.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I had my last boss before I stepped into full-time entrepreneurship. She was consumed with email. She felt like she couldn't do anything. She couldn't really work unless her inbox was empty or cleared. And so that meant that she was often working late and taking work home, working on the weekends, because she was so consumed with email the majority of the day that she wasn't getting most important work done.
I feel like sometimes we can't get out of our way in that way. Like, we don't see it because we're in it. I often feel like I'm really good at giving advice and seeing things and coaching other people. I think a lot of us in the leadership coaching space are, but when it comes to ourselves, we can't see maybe those examples of how one part of the workplace or something that we think really adds value is doing the opposite when you look at the bigger picture from a different direction.
Yeah, I think that's why it's important for coaches to have coaches and leaders to have, mentors and other leaders, because it's difficult to see your own stuff because you're in it. So you need that outside perspective to help bring that perspective to you so that you can focus on the things that really are most impactful.
I was having a conversation with a CHRO actually yesterday, and we were kind of talking about employee and manager development and maybe some of the biggest needs. And he mentioned delegation as really key. So you mentioned training, but I also feel like, and I would be interested in your thoughts on this, where does delegation play into that as well? Like giving your people autonomy to learn and grow.
Yeah, so there's multiple prongs to that because one, as a leader, I feel like the majority of the leaders that I have been in rooms with and I have had conversations with, they struggle with delegation for a myriad of reasons. What, maybe they tried it before and it didn't work out. And so now they're like, I'm not going to do that anymore. There's also a little bit of fear. There's some insecurity there where they're like, oh, if I train my people to do these things, then they're going to take my job. So there's that piece as well. And then there's also this mindset that my team is lazy, or they don't have capacity. They're already overloaded, so I don't want to put more on them. And so they just take it on themselves rather than being strategic. And if you as a leader can actually sit down and identify the things that need to get done that are on your plate, not just your plate, but your team, encompassing your team, and identifying, okay, well, who's got what, where is the, where are people at capacity or over capacity, where are people maybe under capacity or have some leeway, and adjust all of the tasks to better align with the capacity of your team. Or that might even help you identify that, hey, we need another team member. We need to hire another person because we don't have enough staff to actually effectively do the work that we're called to do. But when it comes to the actual delegation piece, part of the reason why they're not successful is because they don't know how to delegate properly. I use the method of providing a definition of done. So it's essentially like a 3-step method. First, you got to sit down and identify what is the task that you're wanting to delegate, that you don't it doesn't necessarily have to be done by you. Anyone on your team could potentially do it, at least to 80% of the quality that you would do it yourself, right? So identify what the task is, and then take a look at it and say, okay, what skills are needed for this task, and who on my team has those skills? Not only the skills, but the capacity, all right? Once you have that and you've identified, okay, I'm going to delegate this to Susan. Now, when you're having that conversation with Susan, you're going to give Susan a very clear definition of done. So what are the outcomes? What does the end product actually look like? One of the things that when I'm teaching on this, one of the examples that I use is like when my daughter was a teenager and was taking on the chore of washing dishes. So I would say to her, go wash the dishes. And if she went into the kitchen and washed the dishes that were in the sink, rinsed them and dried them, or left them on the counter to air dry, then technically she did what I asked her to do, right? However, what I meant when I said go wash the dishes was put away any leftovers, wash all the dishes that are in the sink plus the pots and pans, rinse them, dry them, put them away, wipe down the countertops. That's what I meant when I say wash dishes. And you can't just assume that the individual you're delegating to can read your mind and knows exactly what you mean. You have to actually spell that out for them so that they are clear on what you expect the outcome to be. And if it doesn't measure up to what your expectations are, it's not a failure. That just means you need to do a better job of communicating what the expectation is, because we've done these things so many times that we forget and we leave out little pieces, little steps. And so the results we get with delegation tend to align back to how clearly we communicated that definition of done.
And I feel like delegation is an iterative process, really, too. Like you're mentioning your daughter, like once you realize that your version of what was supposed to be done was not the same as maybe your instructions, then you can give the feedback, and then hopefully training if needed, examples, whatever, a tutorial video, that behavior can change. And then eventually everything will get complete. The dishes, when they're washed and dried, will include being put away, countertop clean, all the things. It just takes time to have that dialogue. And I think managers really just want like, hey, complete this report and be done. And then think and expect that the employee is going to deliver everything exactly the way they want when there's 7 other steps that they left out. And then we immediately move to not meeting expectations. Let's pop somebody on a PIP and send them out.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And it's we fail to recognize the missteps that we made within our own leadership and delegation, the way that we delegated.
One of the things that you've talked about that I really love is helping leaders help realign their teams without burning themselves out. Can you talk to us what realignment might look like in practice and why this is so important, especially right now?
Well, that's kind of a loaded question, but but essentially, when I say realignment, that really means going through the process of restoring trust if trust has been broken. Before we got started, we were having a brief conversation about the Coldplay CEO HR director incident, right? So trust has been broken within that organization, and so they're going to need a campaign to restore trust and leadership there, right? So restoring trust. It also looks like clarifying roles. So sitting down, having a meeting to do that level set to ensure that everyone is clear on what their role is. What is your lane to run in, so that you're not overlapping over someone else and 2 people are trying to do the same thing, or vice versa. Nobody's doing something because they think that, oh, I think that this person's supposed to be doing that, or, well, I thought that so-and-so was supposed to be doing that. So getting really clear on those roles, and then also reconnecting to the vision, reconnecting to the mission. Because if what happens regularly within organizations is this thing called mission drift, right? You get a good idea and run with it, but no one necessarily stops to say, hey, does this really align with the overarching vision or our goals as an organization or company, to ensure that we're not going off down a path that doesn't really align. And so having those conversations is really, really important. So in practice, that looks like going through and revisiting your goals, checking for that vision, mission alignment, addressing any hidden tensions that are there within the team or the organizational culture as a whole, and rebalancing workloads if they need to be.
Another big question is
Okay.
around accountability. Accountability in the workplace without creating a culture of fear.
Mm-hmm.
Any tips from how leaders can maybe build more trust and that accountability at the same time without making employees feel so scared and overwhelmed? Just a lot of fear. I think I would love any insights from you in that area. We all would.
Yes. The number one thing that you can do as a leader to really create that, to build trust and to build that accountability piece, is to model it, right? You've got to model the transparency, model the consistency, model trust, model that psychological safety. And that can look like, having accountability conversations framed around, listen, I want to see you succeed, right? So let's maybe track this task together, or, let's take a look at what your workload is. What are the things that are draining you? Where are you getting hung up, so that I can be a resource for you to remove any bottlenecks, remove any obstacles to you being able to perform at the level that we really desire to. And owning up to your own mistakes, being able to say, being transparent and being vulnerable and just saying, hey, you know what? I messed up here. I did this, and I take ownership for that. I take accountability for that. And just really modeling that for your people. And not being afraid to say, you know what? I don't know. Right. I am quick. I travel all over the US and Canada training leaders. And I get questions when I'm in the room sometimes, and I don't know, because I don't know everything. I know a lot, but I don't know everything. And so sometimes I'll get a question. I'm like, you know what? I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. And it's okay to say that, because again, that's modeling for your team that vulnerability, and that allows them the space. Well, if my director, supervisor, manager, whoever can do that, then I can too.
I like that vulnerability piece, because we can't possibly know everything.
No.
And there are other people in the organization or outside of the organization who are experts in different areas. So why not lean on those people to help fill that gap? It allows new perspectives, new experiences when you offer up those opportunities. I used to be the HR manager at Home Depot's. All right. I am not a home improvement person. I'm dangerous in certain areas, like the garden department. But inevitably, I would be walking to my office and somebody would hunt me down in like the plumbing aisle, which is plumbing and electrical, worst aisles to ever walk in. I tried to avoid, but inevitably somebody would ask, and they would say, I'm looking for la 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 la. I need this voltage for this fuse box. And I'd be like, I don't know. Well, I always just said, I'm not sure. Let's go find out someone to get us the answer. And nobody was upset. I never got an angry customer because I tried to give them the answer to a problem that would have been incorrect. But you got to tap into those people that know. And a lot of times people just either want to be heard or just know that you're going to look for the solution or help them find that answer. It doesn't have to come directly from you.
Exactly. And I love your specific response. And that was one of the things very early on in my career. I think because I'm just empathetic and a nurturer by nature, when I would get the angry people on the phone, those calls got directed to me because I was able to talk people down. And that's literally all I would do is, I tell, if I didn't know, I would tell them, hey, I don't know, but I'm going to find out for you. I'm going to get you to the right place. And that's all people really want. Every human being on the face of this earth wants to feel seen, heard, and valued.
Not for you to diagnose me like a therapist or a psychologist, but last night I had a dream and I woke up and I said something in my dream. I don't exactly remember what, but it made somebody mad. And this woman in my dream was ready to rage on me. And she just started in, and my response to her, which makes me laugh now in my dream, was, yeah, I'm open to feedback. Let me know. I really want to understand your point of view. And in the dream anyway, it de-escalated the situation because that wasn't what this person was expecting. And I think there's a lot that says to a strategy like that to just be open and be like, yeah, sure. I would love to hear, like, tell me what I did wrong or how I can improve. And those aren't really common responses in this day and age. I feel like everybody wants to be defensive, which I have a teenager. I am defensive all the time, and so is she. But if you just respond with, yeah, tell me, I want to hear, that de-escalates almost everything. And in my dream, at least anyway, it worked. And the feedback, I don't even remember what it was. That probably wasn't important. It was important how I responded to that particular person who came at me when they disagreed with something that I was saying or sharing.
Yeah, that's perfect. One of the things that I always share when I'm in the room with leaders is to assume people have a positive intent, right? Because we are kind of a very jaded society right now, and we feel like everyone is, like we're on defense, we're on guard at all times. And so when you take a look at different scenarios and situations, if you come at it, because probably at least 90% of the time, people do have a positive intent. Yeah, there's people out there who mean people ill and whatnot, but 90% of the time, it's done with the best intentions in mind. And so if you go at those interactions with that mindset, it helps you to take yourself out of it and take your emotionability out of it. Is that the right word? Anyway,
we understand what you're saying.
Right? To take the emotions out of it.
One thing that I've been thinking about too is sometimes when people have responses that I feel like in my mind might be really dramatic or extreme, I've said to myself, like, this is just how they're responding to stress. Or I would say, like, they're dysregulated. And then it helps me understand maybe where they're at. Not that it's my job to help them regulate, but again, like you're saying, like, it creates a little distance to be like, okay, this is not about me. This is maybe about something else that I'm not involved in, a part of. And then hopefully we can just be able to get the conversation resolved in a sense, and then everybody can move on. But that way you aren't brought into all that drama,
Yeah, absolutely. Basically what you're doing is removing the oxygen from the fire.
I like that. Better than dysregulation. Like, that word is not, at least one of my least favorite words. But it's what all, the meditation and yoga gurus talk about, and somatic training and therapy and stuff. But yeah, you're taking that fuel from the fire. This is our reset. This is Jessica Miller-Merrell, and you are listening to the Workology Podcast, powered by our newest micro-learning course at Workology called Practical Performance Management. You can learn more about these performance management courses and our micro courses over at workology.com/shop. Today, I'm talking with Trasetta Washington about retaining high performers. You have facilitated workshops all over the country. You mentioned Canada as well, so North America and more. Can you share maybe a favorite breakthrough moment you've experienced during a team session?
Two really kind of come to mind. I'll use this one. This was the very first session that I did with a team. as an entrepreneur, full-time entrepreneur. And it was with the local sheriff's department, and we had been together all day doing teamwork and really kind of breaking down walls and having discussions and whatnot. But what I didn't know that there was something kind of brewing under the surface that we hadn't quite tapped into yet. And we were in the last hour of our day, and the sheriff asked a question that, like, a very direct question that brought to the surface this angst. Because let me give a little background. They had gone through a lot of transition. This sheriff was relatively new. He had only been in his role for, I want to say, I think that was his first term. It was towards the end of his first term. And the prior sheriff had been there for a long time. He had been in the role for a long time. And so it was a major shift, because the current sheriff had a completely different leadership style and perspective than the prior sheriff had. And so, so it was a huge culture shift. And, whenever you're trying to make a culture shift, it takes time, and there's going to be some tension, and some people had left and whatnot. But anyway, something had happened that never really had gotten resolved. And so that question that he asked in the moment opened the door, and everyone kind of got quiet. No one wanted to say anything. And I was able to gently ask a few questions, because one of the things we had done at the very offset of the day was I made them write permission slips to themselves. Like, what do I give myself permission to do in order for me to show up fully in today's space? And I reminded them. I went and grabbed the permission slip. They were on the wall. I went and read some of the permission slips. These are the things that you all said. So, and before we can close out this day, we need to have this open dialogue. And out of that came, I was able to give them some suggestions to kind of repair, because this was just with the executive leadership team, to repair and draw them together. And one of the things that I recommended they do was to meet, go to lunch together out, once a month, just get together, go to lunch. And it's not about business, no work talk, just getting to know one another as people. And so they started doing that. And even now, I just ran into one of the executive team members when I was in Tallahassee a few weeks ago. They still do it. 4 years later, they still get together every single month.
It's those kind of things as a consultant, coach, trainer that stick with me. Like, I keep hold that memory and that interaction close to your heart. And when you've had a bad day, you revisit, because you forget. And also, we don't hear, as coaches, trainers, a lot of those kind of things. We never get the feedback. So we just kind of live in this unknown, because we're not continuing to see the organization on a regular basis. So
yeah, so that did my heart good.
Of course, yeah.
Know that they're still doing it.
Final thoughts here. If a leader is feeling stuck, inevitably we're all going to be in that place. Maybe like they're managing everything instead of maybe truly leading. What is a tip or suggestion that you can leave them with to start taking a shift or to become unstuck?
Pause and reflect. I'm really big on a huge part of the work that I do with leaders is reflection, and doing doing journaling and reflection exercises, so that because I don't think we slow down and stop enough to really be introspective. And when we can do that, when we can just stop for a moment and kind of attempt to pull back the lens, that allows us to be able to see where there could be gaps, see where there's areas where we can improve, see where there's areas where maybe we could delegate more, or there's something that our team could be doing that we have taken on, or there's something we can do to a system or a process that we can do to remove some bottlenecks or roadblocks to our team members. And so really taking that time to pause and reflect, and then also just releasing control in really teeny tiny small steps. You don't have to let everything go at once. Just start, teeny tiny baby steps. The term Kaizen, right? Basically teeny tiny baby steps in the right direction. Because those small shifts can really have some major impact going forward, and that builds the muscle, and you get those small wins, and that positively reinforces the behavior, and so you're more likely to go a little further.
Yeah, you don't have to have big shifts to make a big impact. Small changes over time can sometimes be more meaningful.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Because it's sustainable. I tell people all the time, like, don't try to change everything at once, because it's going to be overwhelming and you're not going to stick to it. Pick one thing and double down on that one thing until it becomes second nature. And then you can introduce something else.
I love that. Well, Trasetta, I always love talking with you. It's a pleasure. And I can't wait till we're going to see each other again in December. Where can people go to learn more about you and the work that you're doing?
So I would probably say, I have two websites. So I have one for the brand, for the company, which is profitableproductivityllc.com. And then also my personal brand, which is trasettaanel.com. Those are the best two places. If you want to know more about like leadership coaching, that kind of one-on-one, like I'm a leader and I want to invest in myself, that's my personal brand site is probably the best place. If you're more like, how can I build my team better? How can I create a more cohesive team, rebuild culture, or realign all of that? Then I would say profitableproductivityllc.com.
I will make sure that we link to both the websites and then also to your LinkedIn so that they can reach out to you directly if they have questions. Trasetta is also on TikTok like I am, and I would encourage you to give her a follow on the social medias as well. She has a lot of good content and resources as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for taking the time to chat with us today.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thank you for the invite.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Workology Podcast. Retaining high potential and high performing employees isn't just about perks. It's about building trust, creating opportunity, and showing them a future inside your organization. I'm so glad that Trasetta Washington could join us here today. If you love this conversation, be sure to subscribe to the Workology Podcast on your favorite platform and share it with other HR leaders who could use these insights. Let's keep challenging the way we work so we can build better workplaces together. And thank you for joining the Workology Podcast. It's sponsored today by our Practical Performance Management micro course. Check out this micro course and others over at workology.com/shop. This podcast is for the disruptive workplace leader who's tired of the status quo. I'm Jessica Miller-Merrell. Until next time, visit workology.com to listen to all our episodes of the Workology Podcast. Have a great day.